Hello, everyone. I hope you enjoyed your time here on this hell planet Earth. As being someone who was born after 9/11, I hadn't really seen a world that showed much promise, really. It's always chaotic, dysfunctional, something's always wrong. There's never any, good news on the television ever. That's why I don't watch the news. So, be me, and you're trying to find, why is this so terrible? And I mean terrible as in like in those infomercials in the black and white world where nothing seems to work. So naturally, as a Zoomer, I went on the internet to do my English project to write a 5-page paper on why the world sucks. And this is the video for that. So to find the root cause of the problem, you kind of have to go back to, what makes us special as different animals on the planet. And the only thing that I could think of that would really make sense is that we believe that there is a big man in the sky that created us. Now, I'm not sure about any other animals, but I can only speak for us, so that is what I'm going with. I don't know if cats and dogs have a cat and, dog god, but we're gonna go with this. So, mainly, religion is divided by two kinds in sociology. There is like a religious, a structural one, like institutional, sort of the church and the books and doctrines, the kind of more dogmatic approach to it. And then we have the spiritual, which is more personal. It is sort of what you particularly believe in and how your feelings towards supernatural things. What I don't like is that there's not much out there about this because apparently studying ghosts isn't a objective object of study. I guess because you can't hold it, or you can ask easily how Casper feels. So I guess those guys on Ghost Adventures are kind of crazy according to sociology. So currently we just have a bunch of dudes that have their beliefs and things and about their gods, uh, or more gods, I guess. Then when do we get about thinking big brained, thinking bigger brained than they had before? And for the Western uh, inclined, you start any kind of when do people start thinking? You think about the Greeks. Now, most people know the Socratic thinkers, which is everyone after Socrates, which would include Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. But there were actually some dudes before them, and they're modernly called pre-Socratics, and people sometimes don't like the name because that implies that they're inferior, but they just mostly became before Socrates, which is the founder of classical philosophy. These dudes were preoccupied mainly with finding the fundamental principle of everything. Everything that makes up comes from one thing and is called the archie. That's the Greek term for it. You can call it, the fundamental principle, uh, prima materia, just where everything came from. And this is huge because before people, they just held beliefs and they didn't really think about it too hard. So you think, oh, everything came from this and that was just the way it is. All of these dudes, the pre Socratics, gave more rational explanations for why they thought what they did. So they would mostly take an element like air, water, or fire, and they would explain why they thought everything came from that. And this starts the ball turning, and you follow history, and then you get to classical thinkers, and they think of uh, classic works of philosophy like Plato's Republic, and then Aristotle, his theory of forms. And then over time, people build on what these people thought of, and then they make new thinking circles for their school, and then those schools get Christianized later, then those schools think about that related to Jesus. And then later in the Renaissance, people were like, hey, you remember those Greek guys? Why don't we think about them again? And now everyone's thinking about the Greek guys again, and they think about, all that stuff, and then they vicariously reignite that, finding the fundamental principle, the archie. And now you have science now. Science is object. We're trying to find what causes things rationally. And, over time, we make water go brr, and then we make steam, and then that steam makes steam engines, and then whoa no, you have industrial society, you have the internet, you have atom bomb, all that stuff. We never really went back to why they wanted to find the Archie. It wasn't because they thought big, it was because people had believed these things before. They had faith in these things, and they wanted to find why. And now in the modern world, we want to find out why because we want to know, not because we believe in these things. Because science is apparently object and religion is not.
It's a meme, Batman.
One of the people I found in my research was this French scientist called Calligero, and he analyzed the theories of a 20th century French sociologist that goes by last name of Durkheim. The whole read was a giant melt my brain moment. His main deal was that science had replaced what previously was taken care of by the culture, modern society, and religion institutions. So in essence, instead of being a person that is part of a whole, everyone is just a thought connected by these strings of ideas that we have all agreed upon, like free will, valued, ascribed meaning by other people, social contracts, any meaning or purpose we could derive from, is all fabricated. There is no basis modernly for what we think of. Sure, it was all evolved and established from all those thinkers that came before us, but modernly people just assume that we all agree on the same things, at least in each country and culture. And really, I do think Calero puts it best when you read his work, so I am just going to simply give an excerpt of the sort of thoughts behind this. Quote, how should we understand the moral obligation to be a person? If person refers only to the abstract humanity realized in each individual by his participation in social practices, then the modern moral imperative merely asks us to be what we already and inevitably are, that is, human beings capable of acting and thinking through concepts as socially instituted rules. Considered this way, modern societies seem not only to lack definite identity, but to be based in pointless moral requirement. This sort of big revelation that nothing has any really fundamental meaning to it, that we all just kind of agree upon these things, is no wonder that no one can agree on everything. No one has any common ground because everyone has their own, what I'm gonna dub, their own cult of personality. You are your own religion, be that you follow these dogma in this certain way, and you believe these certain things, and you believe things are good because it is your creed. It is your own personal creed, and the allowance of this creed, because you have free will. We're going to assume this, that you have free will. You have your own cult that you are its number one member. And now you get to the point where you eventually find what is the point of this, that you try to make sense of what is all this pointless gibberish that I just lived through. And now you get to the sadness and the nihilism that everyone experiences, because everyone, it's time to have an existential crisis, a about your life.
It's 4 o'clock in the morning. Why on earth are you making chocolate pudding?
Now I'm going to be talking about Friedrich Nietzsche, because I believe he is very important to the topic that we are currently discussing, which is why everything sucks. Nietzsche was very revolutionary in his field because he broke down in a secular way how people really interact with each other. Now, there are what these called patterns of ethical assessment. They're usually expressed in dualistic concepts like good and evil, and later it's guilt and punishment. So, all of this started when people were have more wealthy than one another, where there's an upper class and a lower class of people. And the upper class would usually think of themselves as the higher moral standard because they're more wealthy. So there is in the lower class resentment that happens because of the upper class. Maybe they are corrupt, maybe they're not, generous with their money. It does not matter because over time resentment forms and then it issues in a social revolution where the new good paradigm gets replaced by the old paradigm, and then ad nauseum it repeats. The upper gets revolted by the lower, and the new good gets replaced by the old good. This works forever in human history. It is a pattern that always happens whenever there is kind of a new revolution in thought or ideas. Now, whenever there is good and evil and resentment, then there comes an introduction of the concept of guilt. Guilt is, you do something wrong because other people resented you for it and you feel sorry that you done that, right? I'm pretty sure we can all agree what guilt is. And when you apply that to Western society that is mostly rooted in Christian thinking, you get vices like the desire for power, wealth, and wanting sex, which are not inherently bad things. It's only when they're taken to their extreme that they are terrible for you or for other people. But since this is so rooted and villainized in the place that we live in, these desires are commonly repressed and you feel guilt from them because they are bad, because we all think they are bad when we all know that they are not bad, but we all just agree that they're bad. This inevitably creates a vicious cycle of guilt and punishment from other people. This is what causes turmoil. This is what causes chaos for other people, and especially for yourself if you are in this victim blaming thing where, oh, I want to do better, but I've done this, oh shit, I have to repent or do something good for it, and I have to improve myself, but oh, I've done it again, and now the cycle repeats itself on-stop. And it doesn't stop because we have nothing else to do. This is it. This is the extent of our thinking in the modern world.
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish things they simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
We're at the finals, right? This is it. This is all that it's come to. No wonder everything is chaos. There seems to be no end in the horizon unless something big changes, like everyone agrees to, become smarter or more aware, and I don't think that's going to even happen even with the internet, even with how aware the internet is. And by that I'm just saying that how more self-aware my generation of people are, how we've identified these things and how everything is not working, but we have no idea where to start, how to fix things, because everything is just so irreparably just a derivative of one another. Now we get to the point where I talk about how human rights are an absolute fucking cringe joke, because when you think about it, what are they? Like, we are a democratic republic, even though every news source says we're a democracy, which is not true. Democracy is cringe, because as soon as you control the outlets of information, it's just an autocracy. The person who holds all the information is the dictator. Think Google and Facebook and everyone that sells your information. Now, we go back to, freedom. What the heck is freedom? What am I free from? Am I free to I'm sure I'm free to do things like I'm doing this right now. I think my freedom is ordained by some omniscient, all-powerful spirit. But some people don't even believe in the same God I do because, I don't know, they're atheist or think the dude I'm talking about is some different dude. And so now we don't have an agreement in thinking because our culture is not cohesive anymore because we are all our own little cult and we all believe in our own little creed, and so the way we interact with people isn't cohesive enough anymore because it's not a tribe, because we are living in a 350 million something person country, and we're not even talking about the world globe. It's now reached 8 billion now, and it's so globalized that now we interact with people from all around the world. And so unless you can get 8 billion people to agree upon the same thing, I don't think this is happening anytime soon. So now what's freedom? If we can't agree upon what that is, then how is this country supposed to function the way people wanted it to in the first place? Oh, hey, let's found this country where everyone is free. What even is that anymore? I'm sure at some point it was, because this place was just 13 colonies, and at some point now it's 50 states, plus some territories, and plus every other region in the globe, because we want all the oil from the Middle East. We don't want China messing with us, but we want to trade with everyone else. So, what is it? What are human rights? Should we have a Bill of Rights? Should it's the 10 ideas? They got amended an additional, 26 times? Sure, that first 10 wasn't enough. What else do we need? Germany thinks that internet's right. Some people think that housing is a right. Some people think that, the First Amendment was kind of bad because people hurt my feelings and there's hate speech. So now we have to addendum the First Amendment another 20 times for these other 20 different subjects. Don't talk to me about, my human rights. They are privileges that the government gives you. End of story. It's so convoluted. They're taken away from you like a 5-year-old if Congress manages to slip it through without you guys knowing because you thought it was a spending bill. That's how this country works now. That's just it. Have fun. There is too much content and too many tangents that could happen. I had to stop myself a couple times.